Hi there, this is the Heir of Carthage bringing you yet another Rome Total War online battle with commentary. I am once again playing as my beloved Carthaginians. As you can see, I have 4 units of slingers. I have 6 units. Oh, I can't. I can count today. 6 units Sacred Band Spearmen with 4 units of pointy, 2 on each flank. I also have 4 units of Sacred Band Cavalry. I'm playing this on the Gallic countryside map, which is one of my favorite maps. I don't really know why, it just is. In this battle, my opponent asked me what the rules were, and I told him that it was just max 6 of the same unit type, which means he could bring artillery and I could bring elephants. The idea was for him to think that I was bringing elephants. I do that a lot. People think I'm going to bring elephants, and then I don't, so that their army will be mismatched. He has, it looks like, 3 units of Praetorian cavalry on this flank. That's going to be a big problem for me, and he has 2 more units on the other flank. Praetorian cavalry is very tough. They can easily take down Sacred Band cavalry. On the front, he's got 4 units of Roman archers laying down missile fire against my slingers, who are engaging him currently, and he has 1 onager crew, and then the bulk of his infantry, or I guess all of his infantry, he has 6 units of urban cohorts. So this is going to be a tough army to beat, especially if I don't manage my forces properly. Now, Carthage versus an early Roman army is a pretty even match, and if not, even kind of unfair in the favor of the Carthaginians. But an elite Roman army is superior in many ways to a Carthaginian army. So I'm going to be very careful. He's forming some of his urbans in a testudo, which I guess, if he wants to, I'm not targeting them. Maybe some of my missiles were missing and hitting his men, and that bothered him. I wish that my cavalry were close enough, or my spears were close enough to catch them in that testudo. That would be a lovely sight for a Carthaginian, to see the Romans in one nice compact square so that they can be shredded by either spears or trampled under the hoof of your horse. So my opponent's making some moves with his right flank cavalry. He's moving them back a little. And I'm keeping my pointy to hold the flanks, and here this rock is going to help protect my flanks here. He's continuing his artillery barrage, which is going to cause very little damage because he only has 1 onager. But as you know, artillery is kind of annoying, and sometimes it makes people go on and attack their opponent when they shouldn't, so I'm going to try and be patient and do this the right way. So I see that my slingers aren't faring too well in this missile duel, and that's partly because my opponent is smart and not targeting my Sacred Band infantry. So he's probably going to win, almost most likely going to win, because I was fighting uphill, he was shooting downhill. So I'm going to march my Sacred Band infantry forward, and one of the things I hate about fighting urban cohorts is that their pila might as well be hand grenades, they're so effective. And so I know that I'm going to suffer a lot of casualties from his pila, especially coming uphill at him. And the urban cohorts have a pretty decent range too as far as throwing pila. So I'm not looking forward to this, as I never do whenever I face the Romans. Sometimes I'll run slingers up in front of my line, as you can see me about to do, in an attempt to draw out his pila against troops that aren't worth it. So let's see what's happening. Here I run my slingers up in hopes of drawing some pila out. I'm pretty sure, well, there comes some over there on that unit, so he wasted some pila on those slingers. There's, you can see more pila flying, and so my plan partially worked. He wastes quite a bit of pila on my slingers. Over here, he's trying to isolate these pointy and rout them, and he succeeds with that unit. I'm trying to reform this other unit in an attempt to stave off that, but they're going to be in bad shape, isolated against Praetorian cavalry in an urban cohort. It's not going to be good for him. But hopefully I can cause a lot of casualties to his horses, because I badly need to bring his cavalry down to size to win this battle. Now, unfortunate for me, his urbans, I think, are trying to walk right through my men, which is going to be less effective. Over on the other side, he does the same thing. He slams his Praetorians into my pointy, with some urbans also in the attempt to quickly rout them. And pointy, they're tough troops, but against elite Roman troops, they're not so tough. And so you can see some of them are routing, and the other group is not doing very well. As you can see, it says defeat seems certain. So quickly, I need to do something, and here I have my cavalry to help chase his off and rout a couple of units of his cavalry, which is going to be very important for me. He made the mistake of giving up the hill and coming down to face my stationary phalanx. Sacred Band spearmen aren't tough enough to take urban cohorts in a straight-up fight. Unless the urbans somehow get around them or on the sides, it's most likely that the Sacred Band are going to win that fight head-to-head because of their defensive capabilities with the spears. Here you can see this unit is in bad shape. They've got urbans behind, or a legionary first cohort behind, Praetorian cavalry coming in from behind. So my phalanx is in definite jeopardy because my opponent's making strikes in the rear, so I'm going to quickly answer by making my own rear strikes, except mine is going to prove more decisive. He didn't really have my infantry fixed, yet his infantry was fixed, and so when my horses smashed into the rear it made more of a difference. So I'm going to continue doing this and rout his men. So the key there to my success was that his horses did not engage my horses, which was a mistake for him, because it allowed me to make a pivotal strike in the rear of his troops, which turned the battle much to my favor. Had he taken his Praetorian cavalry and engaged my Sacred Bands, I almost certainly would have been destroyed by them, and then he would have had free rein to the rear of my troops. But now, like I said, he's going to be in serious trouble. He does have one unit of Praetorian cavalry, which I am so happy he forgot about, because it's making this battle a lot nicer for me. In fact, it makes one wonder if maybe those men aren't Carthaginian sympathizers. Perhaps they look at the wealth and the might of the Carthaginians and wish to be a part of it. Or just perhaps they see that the battle is not going well, and especially since they decided not to join it, that they will just sit back and plead for mercy from my general, and perhaps get political amnesty and a free trip back to the glorious country of Carthage. So as you can see, my troops are trying to surround his. These urbans are tough though, and they're going to put up a good fight. Up here I'm putting the vice on this isolated unit of urbans, and they're going to be flanked and from the front, and that's going to be bad for them. Up here on the hill, I have a unit of Sacred Band fighting that urban cohort. My cavalry is coming back in, and finally his units of Praetorians decides that perhaps they should act like Praetorians and be loyal to Rome. So they come in an attempt to help his beleaguered troops, but unfortunately for him, it's too little, too late. So he drives right into my spears, and even though he catches my cavalry, there's too many spears there, and his cavalry are going to suffer great losses. And as you can see, my Sacred Band are really pushing hard on the flanks of his urbans now. He does have a unit of archers, still firing back here, but there's not enough of them to create a decisive victory for him here. So now, as long as I'm smart, it's just a matter of mopping up. We still have a pretty good slogfest going on right here. This is what I talked about, saying how tough urbans were. These guys were in a terrible position, but they kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And they caused a lot of casualties. His general's still here. So needless to say though, my extra infantry is on its way. They're finishing grinding through what he has left. And he's trying to slow me down, but it isn't going to work. Well, I mean, it did work. He slowed me down a little, but it's not going to help him get to his ultimate goal of achieving a victory over me. So in any case, now I just have to mop up his forces. I need to cut out part of this, and I'll start recording again in a moment. Okay, here you can see a situation that is somewhat reminiscent of my battle with the Prince of Macedon. I have, but fortunately for me, this isn't the Prince of Macedon, or else I'm sure I would have already lost. But in any case, I put my troops into loose formation to try and minimize missile damage. He's trying to cause me to rout and to take casualties by pouring on flaming missile fire from his archers that came back from routing. Those pesky things just didn't know when they weren't wanted and when they were supposed to die, which was earlier. So anyway, I'm going to come up the hill and give them a bit of chase to try and get rid of them. He's going to continue this battle even though he doesn't have any real way per se of winning it, as long as he's firing those missiles at the front of my phalanx. Once again, I'm going to have to cut off part of this and I'll come back in. Peace here. While here's the results screen. I had 1,013 kills, while King Leonidas had 1,121 kills. So he had more kills, but didn't obtain the victory. Well, what was the difference between his archers and the Prince of Macedon's archers? Why didn't he defeat me? He did not target the rear or flanks of my phalanxes, and in loose formation he caused little damage and eventually ran out of ammo and had to admit defeat. Good game to King Leonidas.